We are living in an era of adult children. Everybody wants freedom, but nobody wants responsibility. It may sound extreme, but if you look closely, it is not a judgment. It is a precise description of how many people are living today. They crave the ability to decide their own lives, to do what they want, to escape control. But they forget something. Fundamental freedom is not something you demand. It is something you are capable of carrying. You want to live on your own, free from interference. Then you must take care of your meals, your space, to your life, even when you feel exhausted, unmotivated, or lost. You want a car, then you must maintain it, take care of it, and drive it with the awareness that every mistake comes with a cost. There is no such thing as freedom without consequences. And if you want to build a life where you control your time and decisions, then you must also accept the full weight behind it. No one will remind you to stay disciplined. No one will rescue you when you fail. You must keep everything running: your finances, your work, and even the people who depend on you. At its deepest level, freedom is not about doing what you want. It is about being able to take responsibility for every consequence that follows. And every time you choose freedom, you are choosing to pay its price. But what happens if you gain freedom without having to pay for it with responsibility? Is that even possible? The answer is yes, under certain conditions. When someone else grants you freedom while silently carrying the full weight of your needs, as some parents often do, you can experience a form of freedom without obligation. But if you look deeper, it is not a privilege, it is a trap. Because once freedom is separated from responsibility, it no longer develops you, it weakens you, it blocks your growth, erodes your competence, and slowly turns you into an adult child. Imagine a child born into wealth and raised in complete indulgence. Every door is already open. Every need is met before it is even fully felt. He can spend money whenever he wants, own anything he desires, without effort or sacrifice. There is no pressure to perform in school, no expectation to work, no responsibility within the household. He doesn't need to learn how to cook or clean, because someone else always does it for him. His life flows so smoothly that he never has to confront himself. He doesn't even need real relationships, because he is always surrounded by people, but not for who he is, only for what he has. His presence is bought by money, not earned through value. But one day, when his spending goes too far, his father decides to stop. No more support, no more protection. Everything is cut off, and for the first time in his life, he is thrown into a reality he was never prepared to face. A grown man, completely on his own. Now, he has to live independently, earn his own money, take care of his own basic needs. And that's when the truth reveals itself. He cannot function in the world, not because he lacks opportunity, but because he lacks competence. He doesn't know how to take care of himself, because he never had to. He doesn't know how to study with discipline, how to find and keep a job, how to work to create value. Simple things like cooking, cleaning, or building genuine relationships all feel unfamiliar. Life, something he once took for granted, now becomes a problem he doesn't even know how to begin solving. This man is not just dependent, he is completely bound to others. He is a man-child, and as long as that dependency remains, freedom is nothing more than an illusion. He will continue searching for someone who can recreate the life his father once provided, not out of a desire for connection, but out of a need to be sustained. And if he finds that person, he won't become free. He will become submissive, living under someone else's expectations and conditions. But if he doesn't find anyone, it can go even further. He will turn to coping mechanisms, habits, avoidance, temporary sources of comfort to satisfy needs he cannot meet on his own. So, can you have freedom without responsibility? In the short term, Perhaps, but in the long run, it does not exist. Because every need you refuse to take responsibility for becomes a chain that binds you to others. And the price you pay is not money, it is your freedom. On the other hand, when you begin to take responsibility for your own life, you build competence. From competence comes independence. From independence comes choice. And only when you can say no, when you can walk away, when you can stand on your own without relying on anyone, that is when true freedom begins. In contrast, imagine a child who is not born into abundance and not overly protected but gradually learns to take responsibility for his own life. It begins with small things: cleaning up after himself, taking ownership of his own space. Then he learns to prepare his own meals, no longer relying entirely on others. As he grows older, he takes on part-time work, beginning to understand the value of effort and money. He contributes to household expenses and patiently saves to buy himself a car, not as a gift, but as something earned. He takes care of that car himself, becoming responsible for his own mobility. Over time, his independence expands beyond transportation. He cooks his own meals, manages his finance, and makes his own decisions. He takes on student loans to invest in his education, carries himself through college, and eventually secures a full-time job. At this point, he is no longer relying on life. He is standing on his own, covering all his expenses, and fully carrying the responsibilities of an adult within his family. And if you look closely, you will see a clear pattern. Every responsibility he accepts transforms into competence. Every layer of competence leads to a higher level of independence. And that independence gives him something many people lack: the power to choose his own path. So when one day he decides to leave his familiar environment, move to another city, pursue further education, and live on his own, it is not an impulsive act. It is the natural result of everything he has built. But when he shares his decision with his family, the response is not support, it is resistance. No, you have to stay. You have to choose the safe, familiar path. But at this point, the boy he once was no longer exists. In his place stands a man shaped by responsibility, forged through experience, and grounded in his own competence. So he no longer simply complies, he chooses to resist. He leaves, not to rebel against his family, but to preserve his right to live his own life. And that is where freedom begins to become real. Because freedom, at its deepest level, is not about doing whatever you want. It is the ability to be yourself, even when it conflicts with the expectations of others. It is the ability to say no when necessary, to walk away without approval, to stand by your choices without needing permission. But that ability to resist does not appear randomly. It only exists when you are no longer bound by dependence, when you can provide for yourself. And to reach that point, there is only one requirement: competence. Because the less competent you are, the more you must rely on others. And the more you rely on others, the less freedom you have to be yourself. You must adjust, suppress, and reshape yourself to fit their expectations. The more dependent you are, the further you drift from who you truly are, until you can no longer tell what is your choice and what is simply what you were forced to accept. On the other hand, as you begin to build competence, you gradually free yourself from dependence. And as independence forms, something subtle happens. You are no longer consumed by the need to please others. You no longer need permission to be yourself, nor do you have to reshape who you are just to meet external expectations. You begin to live authentically, not because you are rebelling against others, but because you no longer rely on them to exist. At the deepest level, authenticity does not come purely from courage, it comes from the foundation of competence. When you can take care of your own life and meet your own needs, you gain the power to choose how you live, how you think, and how you exist in this world. And the only path to building that competence is not by avoiding difficulty, but by taking ownership of your life. So if you do not want to become an adult child, do not chase freedom as something to demand. Start somewhere harder but more real. Take on more responsibility, step by step. Because every responsibility you accept today becomes a piece of freedom you build for tomorrow. In the end, when you look at everything, the real question is not whether you have freedom, but whether you are capable of holding on to it. Freedom does not come from circumstances, but from how you face your own responsibilities. My personal view is this: growing up is not about losing comfort, but about trading dependence for the power to choose. What about you? Are you choosing freedom or avoiding responsibility? Share your thoughts below. I'd genuinely like to hear them.